So today we are going to discuss about some specific terms which would be useful for us to understand labor payment in a better way. Okay, so these are connected with whatever we had been discussing, but we are discussing that separately, basically to let us know what will be the impact of these on the labor cost. Okay, so the first one which we would be discussing today is idle time. And as the name indicates, it says about the time at or during which the employee has not contributed anything to the organization. That's why it is called as idle time. He or she has not contributed anything to the development or to the job in which he is being appointed for. That would be called as idle time. So that's why I have put time for which employer pays but derives no benefit from the worker. Generally this idle time can be classified into normal and abnormal. Okay, and when we talk about the causes can be like production related. See, suppose a machinery is not working, or suppose if the worker has to spend some time for getting it started, some time maybe 1 hour to get it started to work on it, or maybe it is related with the economic conditions, the current condition in the market. That could be quoted as an example for idle time, or maybe unavailability of raw material, or it could be any calamity that is related to the economic factors. At the same time, administrative factors means the idle time can be because it is not planned correctly. The supervisor allocated the work in such a way that it could be completed in a very short span of time, but the employee was given a 1 day time for making that or for doing that, but actually that work could have been done by half day, or maybe half of the time being allotted to him. So likewise, the cost for idle time can vary, but definitely we can classify that into normal and abnormal. Normal idle time is associated with the regular working condition. Maybe the time taken by an employee to arrive at the factory premises after he's been punched in, after he got into the factory, or the time taken by the employee to start with the production process. Sometimes you have to wait for the machine to get started. Those can be that is connected with the production. Then the second one, administrative normal, is you're waiting for your supervisor to allocate the work to you. So maybe that waiting time can be your normal idle time. Or if it is related with the economics, the money related matter, you can say that maybe you have to wait some time for the arrival of your raw material. You will be waiting in your factory premises, or you would be just waiting for the compilation of your or sorting of your raw material once. This is very common when we talk about fish processing industry. Morning you get the stock, you have to clean it. There would be a staff who would be engaged in cleaning that. So if there is a delay in the first process, bringing the raw material to the factory premises, the cleaning will take time, and then after the cleaning, the categorization will take time. So likewise, the employee at the last stage, maybe at the processing stage, will have to wait for all these to complete. He cannot start his work before the stages being completed. So that is actually a processing time. If it is normal, fine, that is added to the cost of production. But there can be case where there was a failure in the machinery, in the cleaning machinery, or there was a failure in between the peeling, and the task is delayed because of some problem with your mechanical device. So in that case, that is not normal. The worker may be waiting for 1 or 2 days just because it's not working properly. So that's not normal. If it is abnormal, that will be debited from the costing profit and loss account. It's a loss for you. So it is debited from the costing profit and loss account. Otherwise, all your normal delays, normal idle time will be added to cost of production. Right. So that is somewhere you have to identify the difference between what is idle time, what is the difference between a normal and an abnormal idle time. In case of normal, yes, that is that is part and parcel of every industry. But only thing is that company will try to reduce the normal idle time as far as possible, because they know that there is a cost involved in that. So no, careful supervision, vigilant planning, correct resourcing, correct management, all these tasks will be employed to reduce the normal idle time. Now, abnormal idle time, sometimes it is beyond your control, right? So that can affect you in a negative way. The only thing which you have, which you can do is you have to plan in advance. If something happens, what is it you are going to do? If there is some problem with the availability of raw materials, what is it you are going to do with the laborers you have? Likewise, you have to have a plan B in such condition. But definitely abnormal idle time, the cost of that will be reduced from your actual profit. So that's something about idle time, right? Now we are going to discuss about outworkers. So you might have noticed that some of the industries, they will have a team within. I would like to quote the example of software industry, IT development. Okay, software development. So in that case, you will develop a software in your office, in your company. You have a team of employees developing that. Then once it is being developed, you will send 1 or 2 employees to your customer's place. Maybe that is in UK, or maybe in a different country, or in a different place, to implement the project in their factory premises, in their office setting. So that's a good example of outworkers. They are working for the company. They are there in your roles, but they at presently is not within the office. They have gone on deputation to a different place. Definitely, most probably that will be to a customer's location. So that's what you call as outworkers. You are sending them for the job which is connected with your primary task. You can remember it very clearly when you take the example of software development industry. Their implementation part requires the assistance of the representatives from the company. So 1 or 2 would be sent abroad or sent to the customer's site to implement the project. So they would be called as outworkers. Currently, they are not within the office, but they are in the roles as employees to the company, but they are in a different place, right? So those category would be called as outworkers. That is first category of outworkers. Now, the second category of outworkers, they are not in your role. I'll tell you a good example for that. See, when you talk about small scale industry, we take the example of Bata company. See, they have lot of cobblers. They have lot of people working working from different places in the northern India, from their home. These people work as cottage industries. They will be assigned with the task of doing a certain part of the companies, maybe leather processing, maybe shoe manufacturing, maybe sandal manufacturing or chappal manufacturing, whatever it is that has been allocated to different cottage industries across the, especially northern India, Delhi, Mumbai, all these areas. That is something which has been adopted by the company, and they are permanent suppliers to the products of Bata. But definitely they are working for Bata, but they are not there in the roles of the company. They work from their home. The raw material, the design, the pattern, the other materials, everything will be supplied by Bata to these people. They only do the compiling or the manufacturing part. So they are also called as outworkers. But the basic difference between the first category and the second category is, first category is there in the roles of the company, and the second category, they are not there in the roles of the company. They do the work for the company as specified by the company, based on the design being supplied by the company, using the raw materials supplied by the company, maybe using the material support being done by the company, but they are not there in the roles of the company. So outworkers can be of 2 types. The first category, I told the example of IT employees. The second category, I told the example of cottage industries who manufacture. No, I told the example of company Bata. Likewise, Reliance also is having that. no textile, Reliance Textile, no, they also have many cottage industries across northern parts, central part of India, where they do the manufacturing and they give back the finished product to the main manufacturer, right? So they would be part of the company, but they are not there in the roles. They are being paid based on the work being given by them, completed by them. So normally piece rate, how many units been finished, how many units been given back based on the raw material initially supplied by the company. So they are also called as outworkers. So that's the concept of outworkers. Now, the next thing which we would be discussing is three concepts which is very important for deciding the labor cost. The first one is job evaluation. Second one is job analysis. Third one is job enrichment. Going with job evaluation, the key term which you have to remember is for fixing the remuneration of the employees. Okay, job evaluation, because see, I cannot pay the same wage for a person who controls an organization and for the junior most employee of an organization who just do the work as been dictated or as been directed by the higher authorities. So there is actually a difference between the type of work being done by different personals in an organization. So based on that, there should be some difference in the remuneration package also. As I said earlier in our classes, a skilled worker would be, a highly specialized skilled worker would be paid with high remuneration when compared with a normal worker. So that identification should be done in order to fix the remuneration. What is the qualities that is to be needed by a highly skilled worker? What is a normal worker in our organization? So in order to distinguish that, a thorough evaluation is needed. A thorough evaluation to be done to fix the labor remuneration. That's what we call as the evaluation stage. Okay, the next one is job analysis. See, job analysis is a stage which is very much part of HR department. Okay, maybe the specifications would be given by the concerned production department or concerned department, like what type of personals they need. Say the marketing department will say that, okay, we need a person with 5 years of experience, with some person having an industry experience to be appointed for the post of team head. Right. Now, we also need a person who had been heading many teams in an MNC as to be placed as a, maybe brand head. Right. So likewise, that specification is being done by the department, but job analysis is whether that particular person or whether the people applied for is having all these qualities to be placed in that particular position, to be placed in that advertised position. So that will analyze the qualities, the skills, the abilities, and then compare it with the requirement for the company. That's basically connected with the recruitment process of the company, because you really have to appoint the right person for the right job at the right time to create a good working environment, to create a satisfactory working environment, for both the parties. Right. So that process is what we call as job analysis. Right. Now, job enrichment is the key word here is it's a non-monetary motivational technique. Non-monetary. There is no payment, extra payment being done. But suppose certain employees, they like challenging work. Some people are not talented enough to go with different challenges. If they are given with a specified set of work, they will do that. They are happy with that. If they clearly define what is to be done, they will do that, complete that in the best possible way. But some people would like to have little challenges. They are innovative in nature. They want that box to be, they want to think out of the box. So if they are given with, like you do only this, or you have to do the work like this, if they have been specified, if they have been given a framework, they will find it really difficult to work in that company. They won't find the work as challenging. They will feel bored. So in order to overcome all these situations, job enrichment is done to, to give some kind of opportunity, to give some kind of encouragement to the workers, and ensuring that they are satisfied in the existing working conditions. See, for example, in banks, the jobs are really monotonous. If I'm being put in the cash segment, as a cashier for many years, my job is so monotonous because the same thing I have to do. I have to credit the customers, I have to encash the checks, I have to deposit the money, the same thing. I'm being dead with counting money. So what they do is they alter the positions. You can see a person sitting in the cashier's desk one day will be sitting in who is assisting with the customers in the front desk. Why do they do that? Job rotation. Why do they do that? To give some kind of challenge, to make the employees learn different tasks, and also to escape from that boredom of doing the same task, routine task again and again. So that all can be brought under the category of job enrichment. Then another thing is you are giving more responsibilities to a worker within the same position. Maybe you give some innovative thinking process, or team being assigned to go with some kind of research on the existing work. So that the team is very much motivated. Yes, they have something to do in a different way. Likewise. So that is basically giving more authority, more responsibility, extra, as you say, freedom to move out of the box. All this being given when we talk about the job enrichment. So you are enriching the existing job profile by giving more extra opportunities. So that's why we say that is generally non-monetary in nature. You're not giving a bonus, you're not giving a higher pay, but you're giving an extra opportunity for them to progress to a higher level. You're giving them an opportunity. If they do well, they would be considered for promotion to the next grade. Having all these experiences, will make you eligible for the next grade. Likewise, right? So that is what we call as a job enrichment. So we discussed about job analysis, job evaluation, and job enrichment. Job evaluation is basically for fixing the remuneration. That is also part of HR department, but that is done with the help of the as you say, this top level management. That is with the executive board, with the chairman, and all those team will decide with support of the HR head. Then we talked about job analysis. Job analysis is primarily for recruiting or for appointing a person to a particular post. We should have suitable person being appointed for a post. So that is all about job analysis. Now, job enrichment, the keyword which you have to remember is enriching the existing job, enriching the existing profile, job profile, without any monetary rewards. It's non-monetary in nature. So these are some of the terms which you have to. So we discussed about who is an outworker. We also discussed about what is an idle time. Then we discussed about job evaluation, job enrichment, job analysis. Right? Now, as we said, we have come to the last part of this module. So in this module, in the labor accounting and cost management module, we were primarily looking at the different systems of wage payment. And in that, we discussed about the time rate payment, where time is the primary factor in deciding the wages to an employee or to a worker. Then we discussed about piece rate system, where we were talking about the number of units produced within the standard, within the stipulated time is being counted for deciding the wages of a worker. In that, we also talked about differential piece rate system, where we discussed about Taylor's differential piece rate system, Merrick's and Gann's piece rate system. Then we also just talked about the bonus, the incentive plan, where there is, along with the normal component, there is an extra component, a bonus, an incentive for which is actually a reward for the efficiency of the worker. Finally, we also discussed about the labor turnover ratio. What is labor turnover ratio? How is it computed, and what is the impact of this labor turnover on the company's cost? And we discussed primarily 4 methods for computation of labor turnover. As we know, it is primarily the separation method, the replacement method, okay, and the flux method. And there is one more method which we learned, which is an extension of the replacement method. So in short, this module gave us a picture about what is actually the wage payment system which is prevailing, especially in a factory environment, and how do we decide the wage of workers using different systems.